Hello, and welcome back to the next part of the extra episode from White Album 2. The episode featured in the PlayStation 3 version of White Album 2, which takes place after Kazusa Normal. So finally, after a lot of drama, Haruki and Setsuna are finally coming back to one another after Haruki is slightly better and Setsuna is slightly better. However, here we are with Kazusa. She's dealing with her mom's final wish, which was the concert. So let's check in on her. What the hell? I peeked out at the audience from between the curtains and saw that it was fully packed, up to the very top level. Audience members here were seriously loud, so it was impossible to judge the number of spectators from sound alone. But this number was higher than I expected. Were they all here for this completely nameless Japanese pianist? Or was it the power of Franz Dupre? 5 minutes to showtime. Yes, today was the day of the concert. The hour had finally arrived. Even I couldn't tell whether I felt confident or not. Well, maybe that in and of itself was a sign that I didn't. I wasn't even sure whether I was adequately prepared. Wasn't sure of anything at all. Because this is the first concert where Kazusa really hasn't received any reassurances. She didn't have her mom cheering her on. She didn't have Haruki kind of trying to prep her. And Franz really didn't say much other than, like, you're awful, do it again. So she doesn't know where she is right now. And she's not used to having to gauge her own talent. And the root of all my troubles dared to stand right next to me. Well, it was a piano concerto, so it made sense for the conductor and the pianist to stand next to each other. But still, how do you feel? None of the exhaustion from rehearsal left, I hope. You've got a lot of nerve asking me that. Yesterday's rehearsal, the final one, was a whole new level of fierce. And it was the very last. He finally had us play the thing properly. For the first time, I was able to play along with the full orchestra, not just the strings. Of course, that didn't mean the monomaniacal fault-finding subsided at all. And our final rehearsal, which began yesterday at 6 p.m., ended today, the day of the concert, at 2 p.m. That's insane. That's awful. Again, glorifying overworking and not sleeping. That is very White Album 2-like. With 4 hours before the show, our 24-hour rehearsal reached its time out. In other words, none of the orchestra members had slept, and here we were, about to plunge into the big performance. You feel ready, don't you, Kazusa? I love the eh. And after all the horrible treatment, harassment really, I had endured, this was all I had to say before the show. No sleep. Not nearly enough rehearsal. In fact, we hadn't played the whole thing, start to finish, even once. Anyone who could claim to feel confident under these circumstances would have to be an unthinkable genius. Or that hair's breadth step away. Equally unthinkable. I promise you, today will be the best performance I lead all year. Huh? Oh, at least somebody's confident. Again, unthinkable genius. That's where he's leaning toward. As though he had seen right into my mental cursing. No, it was the brimming confidence of an arrogant conductor who had never dealt with this sort of little girl's sniping. So, be certain you give the best performance of your life. You should be capable of that now. What? And then he forced this image of success onto the same little girl he had just been treating so lightly. But these are the words she needed to hear. She needed that tiny little pep talk, I guess. And coming from someone who is yet to acknowledge her and acknowledge her talent, that's kind of nice. She doesn't have to like him, but it's nice. If you don't do that much, Youko won't be satisfied, will she? Uh-huh. Then Did that mean give her the relief she needs? You heard about Mom? From Flugel, yes. They've had a massive speaker brought into her hospital room, and the two of them are rooted to the television right about now. My teacher? Wait, no, more importantly, why did this man know so much? And Kazusa thought that Flugel hadn't heard about Mom, right? She was saying earlier that, oh, if he ever finds out, like, he's gonna die an early death. But now they're together listening to the concert, and that's really beautiful. Although telling Kazusa this right before the concert's really gonna throw her mind into some sort of disarray, for better or for worse. Were there all sorts of people I didn't know, working in places I didn't know, for me and Mom? Could it be that for this concert, I wasn't just working by myself the whole time? Maestro. Yes? Did you really? Did you and Mom? Unfortunately, you are not my daughter. That's cute. No, I know that. When I met her, you were 1 year old. At the time, Youko traveled the world with that tiny baby in her arms. Really? You were quite a troublesome child, but no matter how much you cried, Youko could put you to sleep in an instant by playing for you. You were her greatest pride, as a prospective ultimate pianist. But again, in my personal opinion, all of this, even on a 1-year-old, she's like, oh, she's going to be the best pianist ever. Really? That's the value you find in your daughter? Not, oh, she is a beautiful human being or she's an amazing person. No, a prospective ultimate pianist. That's just so frustrating to me. Just because your mom's a famous pianist doesn't mean you have to be one. You have value as a person other than your piano, but Kazusa's mom just messed up her brain in terms of that kind of thinking. So, there are a great many performers in the world who see you as a daughter, myself included. But you made a move on me a long time back. That was then. This is now. Right. That's gross. I don't like that. Don't see her as a daughter and make a move on her in the same lifetime. That's creepy as heck. This was getting too fishy. I wasn't sure how much to believe out of all he said. I hope your father hears you play the piano someday. Yeah. But in the past few days, I had managed to demonstrate more than clearly enough that my ability was the real thing. Maybe, just when it came to this performance, I could trust what this crook had to say. Maybe, in the course of those days that felt so futile, some new strength had sprouted in me. Now it's time. Let's go, Kazusa. Right. Mom, the old man, Miyoko-san, Emma-san, and all the other people connected to my piano playing, though I had no idea how many there were. My greatest, most hated rival, and the one I would never see again. Although this is the beauty of piano, it does bring people together and it does bring connections. And Kazusa's just now starting to realize how true that is, reaching out to so many people that's just beyond her comprehension at the time, and that is good for her. I wanted all of them to hear me play. Really, I wasn't all that confident, but today was likely to be the beginning of a legend. It's starting. Yeah. There she was, on the other side of the screen. There she was, looking as though I could reach right out and touch her, even though she was thousands of miles away. Dressed in the same black dress that she wore at that performance in Japan, stretching her spine out straight, she boldly faced off against the piano, as though there were no audience there. Okay, kind of a cheap one to wear the same dress to two different piano performances, especially since a lot of the pictures that are going to be taken at that performance aren't going to look that different. So it's really, really bad for publicity to wear the same dress. It's a nice dress, don't get me wrong, I love it. But come on, you could have worn something different. As always, she shone on stage. Even though, as soon as she went back to her apartment, she would spend all her time sleeping, rumpled and untidy. I hope everything goes well. It will. She would never screw up and fail at the piano. Yeah. The same attire, the same performer, and, present here, the same spectators. There was a feeling of tension, as though this space alone had returned to half a year ago. But, there were differences. The distance, the location, the number of audience members, and, above all, the feelings of the two of us here were different from what we felt then, like we might be ripped apart. So, if you hoped I would come back, does that mean... Calm down, Setsuna. You wanted to be with me? Yeah. Then why? Why did you send me away back then? Why didn't you say anything to me after? Because I didn't want to see the one I loved breaking down. You yourself know how painful that is. So I couldn't drag you in with me. I couldn't tie you down forever. I wanted you to be happy. I wanted you to think seriously about what path would make you the happiest, not for my sake. And I hoped that after you thought long and hard, your conclusion would be to come back to me. And this isn't the dumbest decision I think he's made. It's not a bad one. He had to make sure that Setsuna was happy being Setsuna, happy with herself, happy in her decisions, and in that's why he cut her off. He said, you know what, don't come back. I'm just making you miserable. Then Setsuna kind of worked on herself a little bit, although arguably she just stayed miserable the whole time, but she did improve a little bit. Got a little bit better, got a little bit more secure in herself, and then went back to Haruki. It's like that expression, if you love something, let it go. If it returns, keep it forever, kind of thing. Actually, it's exactly like that. Why did you hold yourself back that way? Why didn't you try to take me? You never felt like you wanted to fall with me, even though you knew it might ruin us? No, I didn't. That's not pleasant for you to think about either, right? You would take Kazusa by force, though. You wouldn't mind falling with her. She's not like you, Setsuna. Yeah, I can tell. Knock it off. I haven't recovered completely yet. Sorry, but it's not a matter of who's right or wrong now. It's different. But still, I'm going to be jealous of Kazusa for the rest of my life. When I compare myself to her, I start crying and getting angry. Don't push yourself that hard. Fine. I'll get jealous calmly then. I'll cry and get angry, but in a relaxed way. That's dumb. And it's so sad that she has to be jealous literally for the rest of her life over a girl. And that's one reason, personally, I would push for her not to be with Haruki anymore, because that's going to give her a complex forever that he chose somebody else over her. That's not going to go away. That's going to be with her, literally, like she says, for the rest of her life. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what you want me to say right now. Let me just say one more thing. I have always loved you. Since the first time I told you so. Haruki-kun. Even when I betrayed you, even when she stole my heart, I never forgot you. That's why I broke. It was partly because of you. Oy vey. This is so annoying. Like, oh, don't worry, because while I was cheating on you, I still thought about you. That's crap. What the heck? Blech. Yuck. Disgusting. You brought that on yourself. Yes, I did. And I pushed it all onto you, like a jerk. This might be more harshness on top of everything else, and it might be rubbing salt in your wounds, but what I'm trying to say is, come to think of it, what you said? Huh? You're talking to me like I'm your girlfriend again. Your tone. Is that bad? No, I don't mind. Of course I don't mind. Okay. And oh, these two, they're too forgiving. She's too forgiving. He's too, I don't know. He's too much like himself. And after a time, long or short, I couldn't tell, Kazusa and the orchestra ended their performance. The sight of the hall erupting into applause filled the TV screen in my apartment. It was a show of astonishingly high praise. And, in response to their cheers, the young Japanese pianist and the top conductor in Paris gave a spirited exchange. Kazusa stood up from the bench, basking in the unbroken applause of the audience members. The conductor, shaky on his feet after throwing everything into the performance, approached her and offered his hand. And Kazusa, even with her usual surly expression, took his hand and clasped it in a show of ultimate respect. And this was a big deal, right? The same Kazusa who just can barely even talk to other people other than, Setsuna and Haruki and her mom, is now holding hands with the conductor on stage, which obviously it's just like almost like a business transaction, I guess. But like they said, it was respect. Kazusa has made a connection outside of her normal circles. And that is the beauty of what this whole orchestra, the whole point of it was. And that's what Tomoyoko really wanted. At that moment, the applause and cheers of the audience roared even louder through the hall. But that moving scene wasn't where it ended. After that, the conductor, caught up in the moment, moved to embrace Kazusa. But she, clearly having anticipated this, stamped hard on his foot and repelled him. She's still Kazusa, though. At the end of it all, she's still Kazusa, and that in itself is beautiful as well. That moment was when the excitement of the audience truly hit its peak. Setsuna was gazing at my own surly expression at that point, giggling to herself, but that's another story. Kazusa Toma-san, thank you for speaking with us today. First, let me congratulate you on your performance. Thanks. And with the broadcast time nearly at its end, the interview with the TV station began. And, like we knew from playing through Coda, Kazusa's really bad with reporters and interviews and everything like that. So the fact that she's doing an interview right now without her mom there or Haruki there is amazing. It's starting to show her growth little by little. The performance appeared to be an enormous success. The audience sent you out with a standing ovation. Thank you very much. I was a little nervous about giving my first performance in Paris, so that was a relief. On top of that, this was your first time performing a piano concerto. What was that like for you? Well, I was working with a lot of highly skilled individuals, so I feel I was able to give a better performance than usual, thanks to them. I'm grateful both to Mr. Dupre and to everyone in the orchestra. Talking of Mr. Dupre, what was that right after the performance? It's our usual way of greeting each other. He's an old friend of my mother's. Incredible. Kazusa was actually managing to respond to an interviewer. She was still a little stiff, and her answers were a little formulaic, but she was making it happen. That's so beautiful. I'm so happy for her. And what a good answer for a question that would usually make her stutter and be like, No, that was a really good answer. That was a very safe and nice answer. And the most surprising thing was that Kazusa was interacting with the media at all. even if it was only for a local TV station. In Japan, when I was fake managing her, she wouldn't give so much as an autograph. She had changed. No, she had grown up. Kazusa had grown up. She had a natural gift with the piano, but nothing remotely like that in any other area of her life. She drew the notice of everyone around her, but she was a shut-in. This unsociable slacker of a pianist was happy there. As long as she had the piano and pudding, it made me feel happy and a bit left behind at the same time. It wasn't just a matter of being on different sides of a screen anymore. She was well and truly somewhere I couldn't reach. What was that? Where was this sense coming from? Like I was some kind of guardian to her. And this is one of Haruki's biggest flaws, is that he constantly needs to be the one to fix people. Even when he doesn't need to be the one to fix people. For example, when Kazusa hurt her ankle, he's like, oh, it can't be helped. I have to be her doctor. No. Just call a taxi and go with her to the actual doctor. You didn't have to sit there massaging her foot. Or when she broke her hand, oh, I have to be the one to feed her and bathe her. No. She's from a rich family. You pay for a caretaker. You don't have to be that person. Haruki has trouble letting go of that control. Whenever there's a helpless person, rather than do what's best for them, he wants to do it. He wants to be the one to take care of them. That's a character flaw. And so even now, he's like, oh man, I wasn't the one who helped her grow up. It's a shame. And so, Kazusa's interview proceeded astonishingly smoothly. Now, to finish up, do you have a word or two for our viewers? The time had come for her to disappear once again. From the screen and from me. Toma-san? But at the very last moment, she showed just a bit of her old face. The Kazusa Toma that wasn't used to people. Like she was thinking about something, looking around, looking down, breathing deeply. Then she slowly raised her face and... Zama miro! Huh? Ah. At the very end, she spoke a word in a language from a country that was foreign to her now. A word meaning, just you watch. That's Japanese for, I will continue my efforts. I see. Thank you very much. That's cute. And we know exactly who she was talking to. Just now, at whom Kazusa's message of provocation directed? It wasn't me. No, it wasn't only me. It was probably... I guess that's really it then. What is? Kazusa and I are going to be rivals eternally. Because of you. Sorry. It was a message of farewell. Oh, that's so sad. I know this comes up in more than just this route, right? It comes up also in Setsuna True for a while, but then things get better. But there's a reason this one is called The Eternal Enemies. A special one, filled with extraordinary love. They really were ultimate enemies now, these two. That night, we made love for the first time in a very long while. It was gentle and tender, like the evening calm. It was over. I did it. I had pulled it off. I did it. Damn it. Yay, Kazusa. I'm so proud of her. She finally managed to do something, not on her own exactly. Obviously, the whole point of this was to have her do something in collaboration with others. But she did it on her own in a sense that she didn't rely on the usual people. And that is really cool. I hated being led by that monomaniac. But the fact remained that it had been my best performance. Well, for now. I fully intended to outstrip it myself before long. Still, are you satisfied, Mom? It wasn't the sort of piano playing that ought to leave me unable to face my mother. It had been a chance to show Mom something I'd never shown before. Something I'd never shown them in Japan before. A chance to show off how cool I could really be. So, you'll cheer up now, right? As soon as I got home, I would head straight for the hospital from the airport. I was looking forward to hearing what she had to say. No, considering who we were talking about, I should probably expect either, "It was all right," or "You've still got a way to go." But if not words, then her expression, the color in her face, I could judge how well I'd done based on how much better she was looking. So I made a plea to God. Give us more time as mother and daughter. Another 100 years, if possible. And whether or not it had anything to do with the request I had just made, a name appeared on my phone with timing that was both natural and unnatural. Teacher Martin Flugel, my teacher, and Mom's teacher. A retired old man who rarely held lessons anymore because of his age. Come to think of it, Dupre did mention that you were involved in this concert. Aw. She has got more connections than she knows and that she thinks about on a daily basis. So realizing and understanding those connections are extremely important. But his influence in this industry was immeasurable as ever. And if he cared to, he could even force the #1 orchestra in Paris to open up their schedule. But this formidable old man's words, though I had a hard time picking out his meaning in German, were a little too panicked for a congratulatory message. Mom is... He just repeated a certain name over and over. What about Mom? It's very serious. Youko is... Mom? Oh, it's hard. It's never not gonna be hard. Unfortunately, that's a part of life. I rushed from the airport to a hospital in a taxi and found the bed deserted. And a nurse, bringing new sheets for the bed, found me sitting on the floor in shock. "Oh, if you're looking for Youko." "Who the hell said you could leave the hospital?" After that, I found no one at home, so I contacted everyone I knew until I finally pinned down her location. She was grappling hard with the piano, this woman who had been like a husk until mere days before. Oh, that's so beautiful, actually. Oh, it makes me want to cry. "Mom, I swear to God." "Quiet." She turned to look at me, but her fingers didn't stop moving. In fact, the intensity of her expression matched that of her actions, and it made me wince hard, because what I saw in it was... Don't get full of yourself just because you garnered a tiny bit of praise in Paris. What? Anger, sarcasm, obsession. What was that performance supposed to be? You were just getting dragged along by the orchestra. Look, I know that better than any. And the root of it was unquestionably. You think that was your real ability? Surely not. Surely you aren't operating under an embarrassing misapprehension like that. You're the one with the embarrassing misapprehension, Mom. Jealousy, wasn't it? Oh, because everybody needs a goal to strive for. And what better way to make Tomoyoko struggle for her own life than to be jealous of her daughter because piano playing, honestly, I do think means more to her in the world than anything else. So that's a good way to kind of drag her up and drag her out of her, not self-pity, but I guess give her motivation to live. So before we get any deeper into this, happily, Kazusa's finished her concert. That was great. Congratulations. And we will stop there for today. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the extra episode, and I'll be back with the next part shortly. Until then, hope you take care. See you.